Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me on my creative journey. Today I am working on some little clusters, some with paper clips and some that I'm just going to glue to make little tuck spots. And later in the video I'm also going to make a scrappy belly band. So right now I'm just randomly cutting up some cardstock, and I'm not real worried about, the exact size. I just want it small enough so that it doesn't overwhelm the page and that they can, tuck something up underneath it and it'll fit. And then I'm going to edge things and dig into my scraps of lace and what else do I use? Papers and images, and just have fun with it. So for this first one here, I want to make a hidden paper clip. So I have the two pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to glue the inside, the small side of the paper clip to the inside. There we go. I had to say that right. And even though the pieces of cardstock aren't the same size, it doesn't matter because it will all be hidden with everything that I'm going to apply on top of it. So I'm just putting two together here, and then I'm going to wait for it to dry. I want to make sure I get enough glue so that the paper clip doesn't come unattached. And I'm pressing the two pieces securely together so that I just get a good adhesion. Yes, big word for me. Adhesion. And then I think I'm going to work on another piece while I let those dry. So I just like to edge everything just in case it does show through. And I am working with blues and greens mostly, but I do change things up, I guess, a little bit just to add a pop of color. That was my little bin of small scrap papers. I've got 3 bins, one for small, medium, and large. And these are just some of the butterflies that I had cut out in preparation for this journal. Now these little ephemera pieces are a mixture of Tim Holtz, but all the stuff that was on top of that container were from Artie Mays. She has a beautiful digital kit for ephemera or tickets, and so I have those printed out and cut out and ready to use. So I'm just looking through to see what grabs my eye, see what will match with the butterfly and the theme. I'm trying not to overthink it. I just want to lay things, see if they look right, rearrange if they don't, pick something else if they don't. If I had to analyze what I'm doing, I would say I'm laying bigger pieces down first and then laying smaller pieces on top of them so that you can still see what's underneath. But the smaller pieces are breaking things up so that it's just not a big blank spot. It just adds more texture, moves the eye around the piece a bit. And I think that's what my brain is doing, although I'm not consciously thinking of it at the time. So I'm not even sure what this is. I found it at an antique shop. I don't know if it was a tablecloth, fabric, what kind of lace it is, but I've got it in that teal-ish color and I think like a dirty rose or mauve kind of color. So snipping off pieces of it just really help add to the layering and add a lot of texture to pieces. So you don't have to go with, all the same color. I've got blues and the greens mixed together because they match. And I'm just, the final pieces, I like adding buttons and a little bling if I can remember. And letting that glue and sit in place before I move it. So now this piece with the paper clip, it seems dry enough. And I'm just going through to see what catches my eye that's big enough to cover, you know, the back piece, you know, to be the first layer. I really do either need to order some more blues and greens, or I need to sit down and color some of my white lace so that I have more of a selection. One or the other, or both. Right now, if I order anything, I'm sure it'll take too long to get to me, so I will probably sit down and dye some lace. I have a large selection of white lace and cream lace that I can color that have different sizes and textures. So that way I can move it from their container over to the blue container. Because I think I've already used up most of what I've already colored. Now the reason that little piece didn't work was because it was covering the butterfly stamp too much, and if I put the butterfly stamp on top of it, then they wouldn't be able to read the word, which was memories. So that's why I tried for a different piece, and that pink piece kind of matches the little pink in the butterfly wing. So my brain kind of saw that really quickly, and I guess it said, okay, this is pretty. And that's why I chose that. Just in case anyone's wondering, you know, I always struggle. I was always scared to do these layers, these clusters, because I was always like, well, what do you use? And so I'm trying to just think of what my mind is probably thinking of as I'm grabbing and gluing. So right there, I just grabbed some random threads out of that little scrap box, and that just gave it some texture. You know, in lieu of using, you know, a piece of lace or the cheesecloth, I saw the thread and I was like, oh yeah, I got to use these sometimes. And you just kind of make like a little bird's nest type clump. And then it's good to go, you know. And if you saw it on a page, I probably would have thought, oh my gosh, she planned that, you know. She picked each thread on purpose, and it's like, no, you just grab some and it'll work. So that's what I call don't overthink. So this little butterfly stamp came with a DigiKit, the butterflies in blue, just in case I didn't already mention it. I'm pretty sure it did. Oh my gosh, I'd be, if I was wrong, but I'm pretty sure it did. That's why I was trying to use it up. And I'm just looking for a decorative piece or something. And this little cardstock that I ran through a crimper was the only thing that caught my eye at that time. And then this little piece of tissue paper was like, okay, it's another layer of texture. Let's use it. I'm just trying to use different papers and pieces parts instead of making each one the same, which is fine if you want to make each one the same. For some reason, I like to try to mix it up a little bit. And I usually only make these for each journal. I know people like to build up stashes. For me, that didn't work, and I'm not sure why it didn't work. I either would forget I have it, or it'd always be the wrong color, or I just liked the thought of making each piece individual, you know, for this particular journal. And that would just make it special for me, I guess. But you can do either way, you know, whatever works best for you. Sometimes it is easy to have something already made. And sometimes I'll have pieces left over, and then it's easy to grab those for, you know, a different journal. But that's just the way I work. Because knowing me, those pieces will just sit and get lost. I don't forget I have them. And this little doily cutout caught my eye, and I was just like, hey, just use it. It's blue, it matches, and lay things down, layer it up. And it really is fun once you've you start, like I said, I was afraid to do these clusters for the longest time because I just didn't feel I knew how. And then one day I just laid everything out, all my supplies out that I would want. And then it was easy, you know, you just pick here, pick there, well, maybe change it up here. For the next one, I think for the first one I wanted to use everything, and it's like, no, no, no. Save that for the next piece so you don't overdo it. So I only made 3 this time because I wanted to keep the journal or this video short. And now I decided to work on a belly band, a little scrappy belly band since I had all my scrap pieces out. So here I was just seeing how it would look on the page. I didn't want it too wide, too narrow. I definitely didn't want it too tall and then have to cut off a piece after I've already added everything to it. Ask me how I know. I've had to do that and cut a piece off before. So now I try to remember, make sure it's the right size. Sorry for that beep. I have something in the oven. And this is a piece of the kit that I was using for a collage. And I just start adding bits and pieces to it. Even though most of it's going to get covered up. And that was always my hang up when I started working, you know, doing collages. It's like things do get covered up, but it's still a good base and things do still show through. So you can definitely use a blank piece of paper, you know, textbook paper, anything. But I had this piece sitting there, and I knew, like I said, parts would shine through and match because it was part of the digital kit. So my thought process here was I wanted something to add to it because it's only one layer. Normally I would fold a book page in half, so I would have 2 layers to make it sturdy. So I added a piece of paper there, and there's another piece of paper there on the top that has that script on it. So I figured those 2 pieces of paper will add to it and make it sturdy. So I went ahead and indicated that I was going to sew through it. So I did. I used a zigzag stitch to hold all those pieces down. And then I wanted to sew the belly band to the page. So first I said, well, let me go ahead and put some lace on this side, and that way I can knock out 2 birds with 1 stitch, right? So in the beginning I didn't used to glue things down, and then I'd battle the sewing machine because it would want to move all over the place. So now I glue things down just to hold it in place before I run it through the sewing machine. And it's pretty much dry before I get it to the needle, and I've never had a problem with the needle gucking up. And if I do, I just scrape it off the needle. You know, the machine I use is a little workhorse, and I love it. So there I'm showing that I stitched around everything with a zigzag and a straight stitch. You know, just kind of mix it up a little bit. And now I'm topping off with buttons and a little bling because I definitely don't want to run the buttons through the machine. And I'm just adding a little cheesecloth just to give it a little more layer. My glue now is getting a little where it's stringy, so it might need some acetone to it. And I'm being bold and mixing blue buttons and green buttons, and because it all goes together, you know. And then I remember, let's try some bling. So I've got some blue bling and some green bling. Got to say that slowly. And I'm just going to add that, and then I feel like it's done. So I hope you give clusters a try. Once you start, you will fall in love with them and see how easy they are. And that first one, after you start working on it, you just kind of get into a flow, and you just keep layering, and having fun, not overthinking, and you will be a master at it in no time. So I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you give it all a try. And I hope you enjoy crafting. Get in your room and get to it. See y'all later. Bye-bye.